Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tips and Bricks podcast, where we discuss all things Lego and share some of the community's best tips about those bricks we all love. My name is Alex, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm one of your hosts for today's podcast episode. Today, I'm joined by our wonderful other host, Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
I am doing wonderful. It's a weekend here. We went to the farmer's market, enjoyed some pretty weather. I don't know, maybe there'll be some Lego building in my future this weekend, but I am relaxed and having a fantastic day and happy to talk about some Lego.
Beautiful. We love to hear it. Well, today, Clay and I are joined by one of our incredible team members on the Tips and Bricks team. Brian joined us at the start of the year, and since then he's made some fantastic posts across a variety of topics, including some that have shown his interest in Disney and Star Wars. Welcome to the podcast, Brian. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Alex. I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk with you all today about all things Lego.
Brilliant. So, can you tell us a bit about yourself, Brian?
Yeah, definitely. So I was born and raised in California, and like Alex shared, I'm a lifelong fan of Star Wars. I'm actually visiting my parents this weekend because my mom has been wanting me to clean out my childhood room. So I was going through all of these books, and I forgot how big of a Star Wars fan I was. I had all of the encyclopedias, if you remember the DK encyclopedia books, and a lot of stuff that included like the expanded universe, which, at the time that was only episodes 1 through 6 and all of the EU stuff. But aside from that, I've also, having lived in California, a lot of people went to Disneyland, and I did as well. So really grew up going to Disneyland all the time and really love to showcase both of those interests in my Lego builds and being able to recreate those scenes and those attractions.
I have to ask you, Brian, are you keeping these books? Like, are you taking all your Star Wars childhood things back to your adult home now?
No, so I'm probably gonna sell them just because I don't know how much I need to know about.
The dimensions of a
Yeah,
random
random
space cruiser.
character. I was telling my mom about it because she was the one that introduced me to Star Wars growing up. So she did always have me turn away when, sorry, spoiler alert, when Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen die because she didn't want me to see
Oh.
like a burnt skeleton.
Oh no.
Okay, that part is super intense, though. I feel like it is low-key traumatizing. It's much harsher than you will find, especially in a PG movie nowadays.
Well, it was funny because she would have me turn away for that, and then she forgot to warn me when we were watching Raiders of the Lost Ark. And in like the
Oh.
opening scene when
Oh.
Alfred Molina's character gets like stabbed through with the spike, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Traumatized you for life.
Yeah, obviously her priorities were not in place for what to have me turn away for and what to watch. But when I was telling her about the books and I was showing it to her, and she said, "Oh, well, do these books at least explain how the gunner seats in the Millennium Falcon work? Because we always found that so confusing
Oh.
when they're escaping the Death Star and like Luke goes up and Han goes down, but then they're like still upright, but like they're not." And she was like, "Does this book explain what direction they're facing?" And I was like, "I'm not sure. I'll have to check."
Have you checked?
I will. I will after
Okay.
this. Yeah, and I'll get back to you.
Brilliant. So, whenever we have a new guest on, we like to ask them a question that helps us understand their connection points to the Lego hobby. From building sets to collecting minifigures to making MOCs or going to conventions. What has been your favourite part of the Lego hobby, Brian?
Yeah, I really just enjoy the versatility when it comes to Lego, which I know sort of seems like a cop out answer because that's literally the point of Lego as opposed to any other hobby. Which is, I feel, if you get into any other hobby, you sort of purchase it and that's it. Like, this is the product. But to be able to break things down and to rebuild it is just so great. And I had inherited my Lego childhood collection, which sort of spanned the late 80s to early 2000s, because it also included my older sister and my older brothers as well. My parents are a bit of hoarders, as you can tell, with them wanting me to clean out my room. They're trying for me to not fall into the same pitfalls that they did. But they had always dreamed about us sort of like splitting the collection between like us and my older brother and sister when we have our own families. But they made the mistake of basically me inheriting the collection in the meantime. And I totally got into the hobby and being able to rediscover everything and that all of those pieces are still relevant and that it, has such basically an infinite shelf life in that, even though if I'm not using it as it originally was intended when we first purchased it back in the 90s, but that I can still use them. I think it's just so great. And just the creativity. That's what I really like about Lego.
Makes perfect sense to me. And it does, like what you're saying too, like an action figure from our childhood, like it's still an action figure now. But I like that idea you're saying, like you can still have this that you enjoyed as a kid with your siblings, but now it can be something completely different and can become something like to reflect your current interest or kind of where you are in life. So great
Yeah.
point. Definitely not a cop-out answer. I appreciate that. All right. Well, it is wonderful to have you for today's episode, Brian. I'm super excited for all the segments we have planned. So let's go ahead and get to our first one. All right. So today we're hopping into a segment that encompasses some of what we do every day behind the scenes as a Tips and Bricks team. And it's probably what y'all listening do as well in your own communities related to the Lego hobby. This segment, Custom Conversations, is where we talk about MOCs, also known as my own creations. MOC is an affectionate term for something that a Lego fan, like all of us here and all of y'all listening, design or build rather than Lego sets that we build from official instructions. So how often do you get to dive into MOC building, Alex?
Or not quite as often as I like. I started the blog nearly 6 years ago now to improve my mocking skills, but I definitely built a lot more when I had more free time. I remember building a lot of Star Wars mocks, and when Episode 7 was coming out, I actually built the Resistance troop transport. It's how we first see Leia in Episode 7. So I built that in full minifigure scale form. I designed it on Digital Designer first, then ordered the parts via Bricklink. I had so much fun making that, but when I moved to university, I didn't bring any of the bricks with me and I got busy with university life. Yeah, honestly, I haven't got back into it as much as I wanted to. Now that I'm in London and I've graduated, I'm living in quite a small flat and I don't have my Lego bricks with me. So I'm thinking in the future, I will have my own dedicated Lego room. I do hope to get back into it in the future, but for now, I'm just enjoying the hobby how I like with just building some sets, doing the work with tips and bricks. But I'm hoping in the future I'll get more back into mocking.
Totally understandable. I mean, mocking generally takes up a lot of space, so it's very
Yeah.
understandable that, going to university and having just limited resources makes it kind of tough to be able to mock on a regular basis. And what about you, Brian? When did you kind of start getting deep into the world of mocks?
So my parents had held on to our childhood collection, which was all in like these four towers, and they had like 5 sections each, and basically everything was broken down. It was just completely disassembled, and that was how I had built Lego growing up, which is I was always just like rifling through these four towers, and they were split between like my room, my brother's room, and my sister's room. So it was a lot of like back and forth and trying to remember where each section was. So I fell out of the hobby in the early 2000s when I was about in middle school. So they sat dormant for a while. And my sister had a spare room in her apartment after she graduated from college. And she hosted a lot of parties. So she thought it would be fun to like have all of the Lego there just for her and all of her 20 something year old
Oh,
friends to sort of just do when they're over having a party. So it was there for the longest time, and then she was going to give it back to my parents, and it was late 2019, and I had a spare place at my apartment now, and my girlfriend, now wife at the time, she was like, I think you should take it because you still talk about Lego, and whenever we were at Target and I would still see some of the newer sets, and I showed a slight interest in it. She said, I think you should take it. So I took it, and of course it was the best time to take my whole Lego collection because then the pandemic hit
mm,
in March of 2020. So I was now at home with like this huge Lego collection, and I was like, okay, I need to sort it. I need to figure out like what I want to do with this. And that's actually how I found the Tips and Bricks blog, which was through just re-engaging with sort of the Lego community and finding out things. So similarly to Alex's story, when I was, when you're first working your way into the Lego community, there's, various building techniques and fan groups and whatnot. So I had seen a Lego leak of an upcoming Star Wars set that was coming out in that summer. And all the comments were like, I don't know what this ship is. It's like part Tantive 4, part X-Wing. And for me, as a Disney Parks fan, I instantly recognized it as the Resistance ITS Transport, which is
Mhm.
this ship that is featured in the flagship attraction at the Star Wars land. So the name of the attraction is Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, and it takes place in between episodes 8 and 9. And basically, there's like a resistance base that's on this planet of Batu, and the resistance base has been discovered by the First Order. So they have to like evacuate you from the base. And the ship that you board is that ship. So it was a super deep cut of a set to be included in a Lego Star
Mhm.
Wars set. So when I saw that, I was like so excited to see it because that attraction actually had just opened at Disney World in December of 2019 and then Disneyland of 2020. So really the Venn diagram of people that are like Lego Star Wars fans and would have experienced this attraction, they basically only had like a 4 month window before the park closed. So it was very much a deep cut, but I was lucky enough to have experienced it when I went to Disney World in December of 2019. So I basically made it my mission now that I had this Lego collection and I saw all of this online reactions to like, what is this? And I was like, I really want to just build all things from the Star Wars land featured at these parks because I sort of want to create that same reaction of like, this is clearly Star Wars, but I'm not sure from what source material it's pulling from because obviously everyone has seen the movies or they've seen the Disney Plus shows because those are much more accessible. But to have like something
Mhm.
from the land is a bit more of a deep cut. So that's how I got into it. And I've really enjoyed it because there's so much different source material. And for people
Mhm.
that have been to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, they're very familiar with it and they instantly recognize it as like, oh, that's from, that's the restaurant or that's from the attraction and that's the storefront. So yeah, that's how I got back into mock building, and I've basically expanded from there more into other Disney parks, and I like just creating things that people have physically been in because most people have been to a Disney park. And while it's cool to see movie scenes recreated, I think it's really cool to
Mhm.
see something that the general public, if you've been to a Disney park, has experienced and sort of seen, and it sort of
Yeah,
reminds you of your vacation.
that's cool. And also the idea of like a physical space that people have been in, then I'm sure like it's inspiring in a way, but to me that also would scare me because of how you have to scale it perfectly, or like at the minifig scale, what details are you gonna have to leave out? So you're pretty bold to take on mocks of like a super beloved IP and something that's a real world location because yeah, I'd be scared of getting some of those details wrong, I have to admit.
Yeah, I mean, when I go to Disneyland a lot because I have like a pass there, and I'll specifically want to go on on an attraction to get reference photos because oftentimes, you won't find like, oh, where is the exit sign placed or where is like
Hmm.
the trash can, and I think for people that do recognize my mocks, they at least sort of appreciate that level of detail because it is a physical space as opposed to just what's seen on the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, totally understandable. Awesome. Well, thank y'all for sharing about some of the ways that y'all kind of got more into mock building, transitioning from, where we buy and build a set into kind of putting our own spin, whether we're recreating a real world location or just building an idea straight from our brains. So for today's custom conversation, we're of course going to talk about mocks, but I want to talk more specifically about sharing these. Sometimes we can share a mock by taking it to a convention, taking pictures to post on social media for other people in the LEGO community to see. Some people will even create instructions and publish them so that others can build the same mock that they've designed. So we're going to talk a little bit about sharing our mocks. Alex, you started Tips and Bricks because you wanted to kind of go through these tips and become a better mock builder. So, before Tips and Bricks, or even throughout your time with us, how have you kind of shared some of your mocks? Do you post online or take them to any like physical meetings or conventions?
Very interesting question. Thanks, Clay. So Probably not a lot of people know this. Maybe Clay, Brian, you won't know this either. But before Tips and Bricks, I actually had my own YouTube channel.
Drop the link. Drop the
Right?
link.
We're all going to be hunting for this one now. See a baby Alex on YouTube.
And I posted such a variety of things. Like I built the Phantom from Star Wars Rebels in like I took the set itself and just made it bigger and gave it a blue color scheme. And I think that's my most popular video and got maybe 5,000 views. This was 6 years ago. It was all right at the time.
Yeah.
And I also did some like custom minifigures of the Knights of Ren. Like I was so into the sequels
Mm,
when I was in my school years. And maybe a few other things as well. I think I maybe posted my Resistance troop transport there, but it never really took off, or just like I just found it was a lot of time. And also I found
yeah.
like I wanted to improve my building skills a lot, and I actually really enjoyed looking at people's builds on Flickr
Mm,
and started kind of breaking those builds down and sharing tips and techniques. And that's how Tips and Bricks started. So I kind of more transitioned to that. That's kind of how I shared my love of the hobby. I'd say nowadays, though, like I said, I don't have too much time for mock building, but if I'm inspired
yeah.
by something, I'll potentially build it on Digital Designer, Stud.io. For example, the High Republic books, I was really enjoying reading those. So I created a little mini build of one of the main ships, which is Jedi Vector, and share that with the Tips and Bricks team. Or I attend my local lug here in London, and they have monthly meetups, and I've built there quite a few times. They often just bring like random boxes of Lego and set kind of themes. So I still try and keep my custom building skills fairly regularly flexed, I guess,
Yeah.
because I still do really enjoy it when I find the time.
Yeah, I love that idea of sharing a mock with a lug, a Lego user group, if there's one in your area. I have yet to do that, but I've gone to lug meetings and people have sometimes brought, small builds that are pretty easy to transport. Maybe ones they've posted in our Discord or on social media, but it's always fun to see them in person. And especially in a lug meeting where you're, around fellow mock builders and lovers of Lego, it's even a space where you can kind of get constructive feedback and solicit feedback if there's something you're not sure about or something you want to change. So being able to share mocks in that way with a community who can kind of help strengthen your builds, I think is really awesome as well. What about you, Brian? I know that we had the pleasure of being at Brickworld Chicago this year together. So, how was that experience of showing a build at such a huge Lego convention in Chicago?
Yeah, so I've only brought a mock to like a local meetup at sort of like a Lego hobby shop nearby. So aside from that, it was sort of really jumping into the deep end and going to Brickworld Chicago, which is of course the largest Lego convention here in the US. And I was a little bit stressed about bringing it because I had never traveled with Lego before and already, having to bring my clothes and my toiletries on top of like this huge build
Hmm.
was a lot to handle. And it was actually really funny, which is leading up to it, I was working on a different build based off of Rise of the Resistance, but I'm most known online for my mock of the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, which is the short-lived Star Wars hotel at Walt Disney World. It just closed down a couple months, and it's been going viral recently because of a sort of breakdown video of the whole history of this. So I had built the atrium, which is basically the lobby of the hotel or of the Halcyon, which is the ship that you are boarding as you're going on your, I think it's 3 night, 2 day excursion. And it was picked up by a lot of people that had experienced it, and I didn't have the
Hmm.
opportunity to experience it because it was very expensive, and obviously taking the time off was a lot to take into
Hmm.
account. So similarly to as we sort of discussed, I just used reference photos and the theme park community. There's a lot of like VR videos. So I was also pulling up YouTube videos and basically just like swiveling around in my office chair about like, where does this bench go? And where does this bench go? And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people that have experienced it because they're very passionate about the Galactic Star Cruiser because obviously it means a lot to them, and it's really been nice to share that. But with it has sort of come the request for instructions, which normally I don't normally do because I like to just build the mock and share it.
Yeah.
But if there is enough interest, I'm a bit of a people pleaser and I feel obligated to do it. And it is nice to be recognized for like your artistry as opposed to, sort of I'm not saying I'm not appreciated at my actual job, but you know, nobody's ever like, hey, I could really use like I would really be happy if you were to do this for me.
Yeah.
So it is nice to be able to do that. Originally, I was not planning on bringing it to Brick World because it was like it's very large. I had
Yeah.
split it up into three sections. It was like modular. I think it measured about 2.5 feet. So I was working on two smaller mocks, and my wife was like, honestly, this would be a disservice if you were to like not bring the Galactic Star Cruiser to like Brick World. And I was like, does anyone like actually care? And surprisingly, like when I did post that I was coming to Brick World, like someone who was semi-local in the area, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we saw you were like going to be in Chicago," and we're like, "We live 2 hours away, and we experienced the Galactic Star Cruiser, and we really wanted to like come see it in person and like to thank you for like building the."
Uh, that's
Right?
so cool.
Yeah,
Truly.
it was very surreal, and I was able to chat with like a few other people. Once again, the Venn diagram of people that were like at Brick World and would have experienced the Galactic
Right.
Star Cruiser was very small, but
But you found them.
yeah, they were like, "Oh my gosh!" And same thing. Everyone always asks, like, "Oh, you for sure like went on it, right?" And I said, "No, I haven't. I just know my reference photos and videos."
Mhm. I think that's the really cool thing about the Lego community, though, is like whatever your specific interest is, you should just lean into that because you should build what you want to enjoy. But then there's always going to be other people that enjoy that as well. And that's how you can meet them, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
fact you were able to connect with those specific people at Brick World, if you brought a different build or not brought that build at all, like you wouldn't have connected with them, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's the bit of advice I'd give is just always build what you love because don't worry about how popular it's going to be. If you're posting it to Instagram or whatever, just build what you
Mhm.
love and you'll draw in similar like-minded people.
Yeah.
I love that point. Because in the world of social media, it is very easy to get focused on the response. So, taking that step of sharing a mock with other people can sometimes be a difficult step to take and be vulnerable. But then I'm sure at some points we become almost focused on the reactions to it or building to other people. So, I love your point, Alex. Build what you love. And I mean, the Lego community is enormous. So you will likely find people similar to you who have similar interests who you can kind of celebrate those builds with as long as you start kind of from inside with what you most care about and express it in that way.
Wise words, wise words. So, Brian, what advice would you have for people who want to try and get into mock building maybe for the first time? I've run Tips and Bricks for so long, but I see so many people's amazing builds and almost feel a bit intimidated to make my own because I feel pressured to include all these amazing building techniques. So, do you have any advice for someone coming into the Lego community and building mocks maybe for the first time?
Yeah, I would honestly just say to do it. I mean, you don't have to share it, but I think being able to see what bricks you have and trying out new things. So when going back to how I was coming out of my dark ages, my sets spanned from the late 80s to the early 2000s. And seeing how many parts had debuted like since 2005 was just like mind blowing to me because I think at the time there was only like a 1x4 snot brick and that was it.
Wow, how things have changed.
Yeah,
Right.
it was really insane to see. And I leave it up just because I have nothing to hide. But like if you go onto my Instagram account and you'll see like the Galaxy's Edge builds that I was building with just those bricks from like the 80s to the early 2000s, they're really like honestly very simple because of just like the bricks that I had. And and this isn't me just plugging it for the sake of plugging it, but honestly, Tips and Bricks did really help me in finding new techniques. And I think it's just okay to be inspired by other people. And I will like go on
Mhm.
to Rebrickable and sort of see similar things that have been built. And hopefully the instructions are free and you can sort of see it. So I actually just did that. The entrance to Rise of the Resistance is a turret and it resembles the Hoth turret, where it's sort of got like that sloping angles and sort of like the round dish at the top. So since I didn't know where to start, and this was being 4 years into mock building, and I still went on to Rebrickable and sort of found a similar one and sort of adjusted it from there. So I think it's always great to just look at what other people are doing and to be inspired by that and to find posts like ours to sort of break down. And I'm still looking up like Lego curved wall, and still it's like Tips and Bricks
Yeah.
post like 500 that comes up. I think the community is just so great at sharing how things are done that you can just look it up and be inspired and just try it for yourself.
Great advice. And for those of you who are getting into mock building, or even if you've done it for a while and just want a refresher, we have a fantastic beginner series that we've been doing for a few weeks now. So it starts with post 2398 with a lesson about terminology. And we've covered all sorts of things like best practices, snot bricks, which now, are more than just a 1x4 brick. So we have a whole post on that. But all sorts of tips and ideas if you're starting getting into mocks, or if you just want some refreshers and best practices to help you where you are in that mock journey as well. All right, Brian, Alex, thank you all for taking part in this week's custom conversations all about sharing mocks. And, we even delved into some other things like building mocks based on real world locations, starting out. So I appreciate where we took this conversation to talk all about mocks in our own way. So no matter where you are in the world of building, be sure to follow us for more tips like those ones. I don't know if it is post 500, but post about curved walls and all other sorts of techniques that will help you in your continued journey. And we'd love to see you share mocks as well. So continue to post online. We want to hear from you for any other topics that you'd like us to dive into for future custom conversations. So share your thoughts wherever you find us online.
Brilliant. So let's head into our first game for today, which is going to be a completely new segment that we've not done before. It's called Plastic Shark Tank, and it's where people are going to pitch their ideas for the next official Lego set. Our investor shark, which is going to be myself, will decide which project they want to finance. So Brian and Clay are going to be pitching their sets to me today, and they're going to convince me why it would make the best Lego set. Okay, so Brian, Clay, I'm a very busy shark, but I've carved out a couple of minutes for you both to give me a pitch. We'll discuss each idea together, and at the end of the segment, I'll give you my final decision. Anyone want to go first?
I think Clay does.
Oh, I do? Okay.
I can see it in your eyes.
Uh-oh. All right, so I've got an idea for you, Mr. Shark, that I think you're going to love. Let's just think about society first of all. So one of the first things that we are taught in schools is how to read. Just like Lego, reading is an art form, helps us express ourselves, connect to the world, build new realities. It's all about imagination. So this idea I have marries Lego and reading. That's right, we're making literature fun again. Lego has already dipped its toes into the world of literature. We've gotten some gift with purchases, like The Christmas Carol, Jules Verne. We also have Lego that's based on actual literature, though usually by way of a film rendition like the Harry Potter series or some of the Disney. But Lego continues to reach all new audiences. We've seen this with adult targeted sets like botanicals and art, and literature makes sense as this next step. So I'm proposing a collection of sets called Lego Literature. These are brick-built books of some famous classic literature, and just like those Harry Potter sets that use these large 10 by 16 tiles to resemble a book, Lego Literature will fit directly on your bookshelf right along all of those books that you probably never read. But this book you can pull out, you can open it up, have scenes from the book. We could have some famous works already in the public domain, like, The Wizard of Oz, any of Jane Austen's books, Shakespeare's plays. So we're going to have this brick-built book, pretty spine, you're going to have a gorgeous cover, and then when you open it up, you'll be able to display it on your coffee table, somewhere in your home that looks like you're a well-read, intelligent man of the world, but also with Lego.
Thank you for that pitch, Clay. I find this an intriguing idea. First question, then I have a follow-up question, if that's okay. What age range would this be targeted at? Would it be for school children to get them interested in literature, or would it be adults?
Great question. I think that we could aim this in a few different ways. The idea of kind of putting it to kids to get them interested in some of these books that they might read, like The Secret Garden is often read in middle schools here in the United States. It's already in the public domain, so Lego could make a set like that, perhaps classrooms can have there to get kids interested and excited and kind of extend upon the story that they know. So the idea of bringing kids in actually makes a lot of sense. In my mind, I was framing this more as the art, the botanicals. So it's an adult set for adult readers who maybe had strong connections to some of these old classics, but they're going to be able to build something, evoke those memories, and then also display it either in book form or in the open display as well.
Very interesting. Brian, do you have a question for Clay? And you need to rip him to shreds, Brian. If you want to stand a chance, I pin you against each other.
My initial thoughts are that I know that like the book TikTok world is like really jumping off right now. And I don't know that how much people are into sort of the literary classics. So in sort of viral terms, I know that there are a lot of modern day books that are really popular, but I don't know how many people are like, I really want this classics book represented as a set.
Totally fair. And I think that we could potentially go in a few ways with it. If it's Lego literature, we can dig into some of these classics. Like, I mean, I would love a Pride and Prejudice, brick built Pride and Prejudice on my bookshelf right beside all of my other Jane Austens. But Lego creates and partners with all sorts of different IPs. So, there could be something modern, like Lego Fault in Our Stars. We're not going to get a $50-$100 set of that, but perhaps having just a singular book where fans of that, I guess these TikTok people, could also dive into something a little bit more modern that is not going to be enough to create its entire theme, but perhaps a singular set where Lego will go pursue that partnership with that author and book. Maybe. Oh, wait, no, I exude confidence as a shark. That's what will happen.
Oh, wait, you're now the shark? Is this shark on shark?
Shark on shark? Yeah, wait a second.
It's an interesting concept, Clay, but I think you should have come in with a lot more decision around. I feel like this could have been a great children's set for like bringing books to life and put some action features in. But if you're going down the more adult route, I just struggle to think that adults are going to want these on their shelves when they could have the real thing. You could fold it out and play with it, but I just think as a display, if you're a book lover, you'd prefer to have the real books rather than Lego versions. I could be biased because I'm not a massive fan of the books themselves. I think you've taken this down the wrong route, but we will wait and see what Brian thinks. There's a chance Brian's will be worse than yours. I mean, Brian's will be better than yours. So...
Oh, don't give away the ending. Damn.
I'm afraid you got the really grumpy, angry shark today, who is ripping everything to shreds. But without further ado, Brian, I'm really excited to hear yours. Go for it.
That didn't sound biased at all.
Right, Brian, could I just give you a little tip? If you go for anything Star Wars, I'll pick you.
I will not be pivoting.
Hey, what if we do Lego literature with a Hand of Thrawn novels?
Too late. Okay, no.
The Courtship of Princess Leia as a novel. Trust me, it's not a book you don't want to read anyway. So,
Is that a real book?
yeah, it was one where she got married. She was supposed to marry some prince of something, and then they went to Dathomir and ran into the Force Witches who ride Rancors, and Han was there, and then her and Han like fell in love and got married, even though the courtship was with this other guy.
The expanded universe is something else, isn't it? I really thought you'd made that up.
No, prequel expanded universe is wild.
Drama right there. Okay, Brian, play me away.
All right. So I know I've talked a lot about Disney parks and Star Wars, but as I've said, that my interests are very varied. And my third sort of bucket of interests are Broadway musicals. So whether it is a Broadway show or the shows on the West End and the touring production, it really has a large market. And I think that it's really an untapped one that Lego can get into. And I know that there are the Wicked sets that are coming out later this fall, but those are based off of the film, and I would want this based off of the actual stage production. So as a starting set would be a stage with some seats and sort of sound systems that people can purchase. And I know that some people would say that, oh, well, Lego doesn't really have DLC or add-ons, but I would quote the Mario series in that there are sort of the initial set ones, and then there are sort of the booster packs. And basically each Broadway show would get its own booster pack that would include the minifigs of, say, the principal roles and some of the scenery that flies in. So, say if it were Wicked, you could have Glinda's bubble that she flies in on, and some of the scenes from Shiz. But then if you're looking at another show like Dear Evan Hansen, and it has like his bedroom or sort of the school scenes. And I think it just really has the opportunity for people to buy their favorite Broadway show and to put it on the stage. And I would even go one step further and sort of include some sort of like sound effect thing that Mario uses, in that it will play the main song or something if the minifig presses on the main part of the stage. So that's sort of my idea. It can be sold with the touring productions and at the gift shops on Broadway or on the West End, and then of course also found at Lego stores.
Interesting concept. My business-minded brain particularly likes the fact you're combining it with selling it in gift shops and after the show's been on. I would say that it's a bit of a risk for Lego to do this, though. I think the musical scene has taken a bit of a plunge after the pandemic in terms of getting back on track, and some of those ones you mentioned may be a bit obscure. I think Wicked, like there are certain ones which are very popular, but I would struggle to see this being built out to lots of different sets. How would you respond to that?
I would say that I quoted bad examples. So
Give me good examples then. Well, I think Hamilton.
yes, at the series one, I would Wicked, Hamilton, The Lion King, and Phantom of the Opera. I think those are ones that all have very large sets that would come with these builds and the minifigs. And I think Lion King would be really fun because of the costumes, and that if you've ever seen it, they're like humans, but they have these lion heads, these headdresses. And I think that those molds would be very popular. Phantom of the Opera, of course, would come with a chandelier that you could hang, and his lair with a boat that you can pull across the stage with all the candelabras. And then Hamilton, of course, would be the scaffolding and the staircase and all of the wood aesthetic and the various tables that you can sort of move around and recreate all of the various scenes. So I think those would be a good first four as a series one. And depending on how popular it gets, then they can sort of get into the more obscure, newer shows that have their pockets of fandom that would want to have this on display at their home.
Clay, what's your question for Brian?
Okay, so I like a lot of elements of this idea, especially a starter kit where you can kind of purchase smaller ones that work with it. One question I'm thinking of is Lego's decisions of what they will and won't produce based on kind of content and I guess adult themes, if we will. I know that recently we got a Jaws set, which is based on a R-rated horror movie, so that one's kind of pushing the envelope already. But even some of those musicals that you've mentioned as like the first wave, and as we dig into some other popular musicals, I can see Lego kind of butting up against, like, this is something we don't want to produce aligned with our brand, whether it's violence or sexual content, or even some like the historical things that they don't want to really have to push with, or weaponry. So, like, what's your response to that? Would Lego really actually produce some of these super popular plays based on the content that's in them?
I mean, Hamilton's on Disney Plus, so I would always say that if Disney signs off on a historical duel, then I think that's okay. If you want to talk about adultery, I would just say it's relationship troubles that they are having. And the Phantom of the Opera, it's just, he's inspired and it's his muse. It's all about just reframing their relationship.
As someone who has not seen Phantom of the Opera, I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's about stalking.
Okay.
Appearing in mirrors.
Coercion and control.
Yeah.
You're not inspiring me with this idea now anymore.
Fandom would make really cool Lego sets, though.
It's now on me to make this decision. It's a bit of a hard one. I don't really like either idea. No, I'm joking.
Before you decide,
I'm
can you tell
joking.
us, are you a reader or are you someone who goes to musicals? Or did we pitch this to the wrong shark?
So I do read the occasional book, fiction, non-fiction. I've got to say, Clay, the minute you say Jane Austen, you lost me, because I remember having to read Jane Austen books at school and hating them. So, and also musicals. Like, I love Hamilton. I love Wicked. So, but putting that bias aside, I promise I do have to go with Brian's. I just think it's a lot more fun and actionable, like, to have a set that you can add your favorite scenes to and kind of make those scenes happen, rather than just having like a book that goes on the shelf that isn't even a book.
Well, at least, what did you say it was, Brian? Book Talk? The book stands on TikTok will be in my favor, so I will accept TikTok stands as a win.
Okay.
You have survived my harshest critic, both of you, so
Yes.
well done. Both great ideas, but Had to bring us with the harsh truths there. But great, we want to hear now from our listeners. Which idea did you prefer? Did you prefer, was it Lego literature? Lego
Lego
literature?
literature.
You can't even make it sound fun in that fun voice, Clay.
Lego lit. Oh my god, what if it really was just
Uh,
Lego lit?
It's lit Lego.
no. Or we had Brian with his Lego Broadway pitch. So let us know which one you preferred, which one you would vote for the next Lego Ideas set. Without further ado, let's move on to our next segment.
All right, I'm excited to host one of my favorite games today. It's Make It, Mod It, Mock It. This is a game where we discuss 3 Lego sets, but there's a catch. We all have to place these sets in 3 separate categories of make, mod, or mock. Make means that it's a set we would just build straight from the instructions and keep as is. Mod is a set that we'll mostly build, but we're going to want to customize it, maybe upgrade or modify it in some way. And then lastly is mock, which is a set that we're just going to break into pieces and use for parts in our mock collection. We'll talk through the sets, we'll decide where we would categorize each of these, and then kind of explain our rationale and talk through it together. And as always, we want y'all to play along at home, so let us know which of our lists you agree with, and then share which sets you would make mod or mock. Alright, so the 3 sets I've chosen today are from a theme that Brian and Alex both love, which is Star Wars. But we're digging past, some of the ships that we've seen released more than once, and we're specifically looking at the Star Wars dioramas, which is a pretty recent sub-theme we've gotten in the past few years. I chose one from each movie of the original trilogy to kind of keep it interesting. So we've got A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi represented here. So we'll go ahead and describe each of these 3 and then talk through what we're going to make, mod, and mock. Alex, can you go ahead and start us off by describing the first set we've chosen today?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Clay. So the first set is from A New Hope, Episode 4, which is the Death Star Trash Compactor, set 75339. So this shows our main heroes, Han, Leia, Chewie, and Luke, stuck in the Death Star Trash Compactor following their rescue of Princess Leia. To varying levels of success, given they've ended up in a trash compactor. But the great thing about this set is it actually has some functions. You can close the walls in to simulate the trash being compacted, and it's really good because the positions you put the minifigures and the trash in actually means that it can close without any obstructions, basically. So it's a very accurate, it's a very fun kind of play set, and it also includes R2-D2 with back printing for the first time. Perhaps the drawback for this set, though, is the price of £79.99 or $89.99 for 802 pieces, and it is a bit smaller than the other sets you might get for that price.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, the motion in that one is pretty cool, I have to say. The way they designed it so it can kind of display either tighter or open is pretty amazing. All right, let's move into the Empire Strikes Back. Can you tell us about the next set, Brian?
Yeah, definitely. So we have set number 75330, which is the Dagobah Jedi Training. And it's, of course, based on Empire Strikes Back, and the diorama depicts Luke beginning his training with Yoda. So this set has 1,000 pieces and retailed, it's actually retired for $89.99. And it comes with 2 exclusive minifigs. We have Luke in his Dagobah training outfit and R2-D2 with some dirt on him. And then Yoda, which has only appeared in one other set, which coincidentally was the 2018 Dagobah set. The quote on this set is "Do or do not, there is no try." And it features the crashed X-Wing, Yoda's hut, and probably most famously, a very tedious 78 trans-green 1x1 plates and 183 trans-green 1x1 tiles. So I know that I've never built that set before, but I know that that's always the one thing that everyone points out, that you are just placing all of these tiles to represent the swamp.
And isn't this the set where you place almost all of those tiles in a single step?
Yeah, I think it's one bag and that's it. And it's one bag and then it's one step.
Yeah, sometimes I'll see posts and people what's this step that has the most parts placed or most parts used in a single step? And I've seen this one quoted more than once. I haven't confirmed if it's true, but I was like, wow, that is a lot of tiling. And then I complain about the sidewalk of a modular, so maybe I need to put it in context. next. All right, so the last one we're going to talk about comes from Return of the Jedi. It was actually released to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, and it's set 75353, the indoor speeder chase. It celebrates a pretty iconic scene from Return of the Jedi with the speeder bike chase on the moon of Endor. So we have two speeder bikes. One is manned by a singular scout trooper, and the other one has both Luke and Leia on it. It's on, those nice diorama frames. We have some vegetation on the ground, two large tree trunks that the speeder bikes are kind of weaving between. And then the box art even shows that you can kind of set it up where there's Luke with his lightsaber when he cuts off the front of the speeder bike. So there's a couple posing opportunities here. This set has just 608 pieces, 3 minifigures, and it retails for $79.99 USD. I know that you said the quote from yours, Brian, was "Do or do not, there is no try," which is, a pretty famous quote. Even people who don't know Star Wars probably know that quote. Whereas this set that I'm talking about has, the real iconic quote here of "Quick, jam their comm link, center switch." So we have that on a beautiful printed tile that you can use to your heart's content.
It's very clear that they didn't know what to pick there, or they had to pick something, right? And they were like, we'll just go with this. Whereas a lot of the other ones are quite iconic. Not really this one.
I don't know what else they would have picked from this scene, like you're saying, but
pew 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 pew.
Now that actually would have been pretty iconic. I think people would be buying that tile for sure.
Well, I guess that's a good question, which is, are they choosing it based off of the scene or based off of the quote? So I guess it's that they always have to choose, off of the scene.
Yeah, if they, this was the quote that they started from, then I think I would have some concerns. All right, so now that we've talked about these 3 sets, they're all pretty roughly in the same ballpark in terms of price. Like we said, they're all Star Wars dioramas, so they have some of these tiles and things that you can display. We want to know, what are we going to make, mod, and mock? So let's go ahead and start with you first, Brian. Of all these sets, which one are you going to make? Just build as is.
I would make the Death Star trash compactor.
I think I'm actually right there with you. It is also the one that I would have chosen to make. You want to kind of talk through why?
Yeah, already jumping ahead, looking at the other 2, it was more just through process of elimination, which is that I feel like this one has the least amount of interesting parts that I would use for a mock. And the mod, there's really not much that you can do because it's the trash compactor. So it's going to be what it's going to be, basically.
Yeah, and for me, probably the biggest reason that I would just make this as is because of the movement. I think, I have not built this myself, so I don't know how smoothly it works. It seems to work beautifully from what I've seen online and talking to people who have built it. But if I were to mod this, I know I would mess up something somewhere down the line. So I'm like, hey, if it has a function, we're just going to do this exactly how I'm told and kind of move from there. What about you, Alex? Where did you put the trash compactor? Is this your make as well or something else?
I was very conflicted on this one. It was my make, and then I changed it. This actually goes in my mock category, so I would break this apart. I feel like there would be some uses for the sets. It's got a nice amount of tiles and a nice amount of specific specialist parts that are used for the trash. So I feel like you could have some use for those. But overall, for me, I just preferred another set to display, which I won't spoil yet. But I think for this one as well, I think it received some criticism because it's got a space for R2-D2 and C-3PO on the back end, and it's just like, you're not even going to see that. So I probably would have taken that out and made it cheaper. I think it's a fun play function, but it is kind of just like a grey blob. To be fair, a fairly iconic scene. But I just preferred another scene for my make-it.
Yeah, I see what you mean in terms. I completely forgot about R2 and 3PO kind of being hidden in the back. So if I had put this under mod, that's probably what I would have most touched on. But yeah, I get your points, especially with the color scheme there, that it's not the most exciting. But I don't know. If it's on my shelf, I'm going to immediately run over to it and show everybody, look how it moves, though. Ignore the browns. Just watch it move.
Fair. It is a faithful color, representation. But yeah, like I said, I was very conflicted. So it's not an awful set. It's just one of them had to be mocked.
Yeah. And I will say, if you mock something, that means you kind of get to do whatever you want with the minifigures. And the minifig selection is nice, so it would be nice to have those for display or to put them in whatever you'd want as well. Why don't you tell us then which set you would make?
So the one I would make is the Dagobah Jedi training. I absolutely love this scene in Empire Strikes Back, and I love the quote as well. And for me, when I was looking at all three sets, I just thought this was the most beautiful display piece because you've got the greens, but then you've got Yoda's hut in there as well. And I had misremembered. I thought the X-wing wasn't included, but you do even have the little X-wing wing poking out. So I just think it's got a really nice composition, even if you are having to lay all of those tiles. Yeah, I just love the display on this one, and I think the quote makes sense. It doesn't just feel like there's a quote because there needed to be a quote. So I feel like it's just a very complete set. Look great on a shelf. I haven't got this set, but I'm not going to lie. Discussing this kind of makes me want to get this set. So you guys are a very bad influence.
Hey, if you downsize something you have, then you can afford this one. Remember, that's the trick.
Maybe we should include that in the post, Brian. One in, one out policy.
Yeah. That's a good rule.
Yeah, you talked about a lot of great reasons why this set is beautiful. I'm going to push back a little bit on some of this. And I know our resident Star Wars expert, Evan, would have things to say about scenes in Star Wars, but I'm a little bothered by the fact that we do have that X-Wing wing, which we kind of see like as it's sinking almost when Luke first lands on Dagobah. But we also have Luke in his training outfit doing his handstands, which I'm like, is this really the same scene? So would be my mod, because I think that putting it almost right when Luke first gets there would be cool. We also, when he's first there, it like seems so much more mysterious than when he's in training. So I'd want to build up bigger trees, even trees to kind of go around to the left of Yoda's hut so that it looks almost more like that jungle vibe that Dagobah has, whereas right now it's very hut and X-Wing focused. And I know I said I'm just going to do the movement that sets give me, but this set would be so incredible if it was set up in such a way that the wing could actually go below the surface a little bit. I don't know how I would get that done, but in an ideal world, I would mod this so that there's some movement with the wing to really capture when Luke sees it sinking beneath the swamp. What about you, Brian? Was this one your mock, or was it your mod, like me?
This was my mock, in that, similar to the Death Star trash compactor, it's just sort of there. And I always look at the Bricklink inventory when it comes to sets and sort of what parts I would realistically use. And I feel like it has a lot of really nice tan and brown parts that are often missing from my collection. So I wouldn't say Empire Strikes Back is my favorite of the original trilogy, which I know is sort of a controversial opinion. I always loved Return of the Jedi. So I feel like this scene doesn't really do much for me. But, it would be nice to have a Yoda, and the dirt covered R2 is also pretty neat.
Well, if it's in your mock pile and all those parts are for your mocks, it means you do have it. You have that tile with the quote, you have Yoda, Luke, and R2, and you can do whatever you want to do with them. Put them in your Star Wars hotel? Is that not canon?
No, probably not for that, but
Well, then it sounds like, based on this, that y'all are both in the camp that you would mod the indoor speeder chase. So, Alex, you want to kind of explain why that was your choice for the set you would want to mod?
Yeah, so when looking at this one, I was actually inspired by the most recent Star Wars series that's come out on Disney Plus, which is The Acolyte. And I won't give any spoilers if people haven't watched it, but there is such a cool fight scene in a forest, and I would want to mod this set into that scene. The only issue is we don't have those minifigures yet, the show. But I feel like I would maybe do my best to make some custom minifigures from purest parts. But I just think this would be the perfect parts pack for that. So I'd maybe keep the base the same, but I'd maybe adjust one of the trees to have it fallen or cut over like sliced by a lightsaber. I'd probably bulk up the greenery a bit more with some of those new fern pieces. It includes a few of those, but maybe some of the bigger ones as well. And overall, I think this holds great potential. The other thing I potentially would do is I think it would be really fun to have light up lightsabers and build like a black kind of casing for it, so that even in like a fully lit room you could see those lightsabers really clearly. So I can just imagine really building up this scene and creating a really cool recreation of what I think is already an iconic scene from the Star Wars Acolyte.
Okay, I like where you're taking this. Like, it's not just indoor, but you're really modding it to meet something else entirely. Okay, cool. What about you, Brian? Is that exactly where you were going to, right?
yeah, I mean, obviously, just having a base with trees can really be any planet that you would want. And a mod that I had done of the Death Star Trench Run set was at Disneyland and Disney World. Actually, it's at all four parks. So Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Disneyland Paris, and Tokyo Disneyland. The original Star Tours was an attack on the Trench Run. And Star Tours, if you're not familiar, is basically at the flight simulator where you board the Star Speeder 3000. It's basically it's just like a shuttle ship. And the whole thing was that you're supposed to be going to the planet moon of Endor, but then you get caught in a tractor beam by a Star Destroyer, and then suddenly you're taking on the Death Star. And in canon, I think this ride takes place after episode 6. It was the whole like Death Star 3 that they were building. Whatever it is. So I built like a little micro scale Star Speeder 3000, and I had built then in 2010 they redid Star Tours from that one into a prequel one. So now it's a Star Speeder 1000 in that it's like this red color scheme, and you visit all of these different planets. So one of them is Kashyyyk, where you go to Kashyyyk and you're sort of like flying in between the trees. So I have the Star Speeder 1000 that I would want to add to the Endor Speeder Chase to sort of recreate that scene from the ride. And it provides a lot of capabilities to be able to customize it to turn it into like a sort of an unofficial Disney Parks set.
All right. Everything comes back to the Disney parks for you, Brian.
It really is a deep cut. And when they redid it into the prequels, so originally the planets, you would visit 2 planets, but there were 3 options for the first planet and then 3 options for the second planet. So the first 3 it was Kashyyyk, Hoth, and what was the last one? Tatooine. So it was pod racing, taking on AT-ATs, and then just flying through Kashyyyk and like various speeder bikes. And then the second set of planets were Coruscant, where you're like going through traffic, Naboo, where you're like underwater and you're like following the Gungan sub. And what was the last one? It was
Probably Tatooine again.
Yeah, it was the asteroid field that happens in episode 2, but it's I think it's still Boba Fett that like you fight and he like shoots the seismic charge and it makes that great noise. But then ever since then, because of like synergy, they've introduced like every new film. Whenever there was a new film, they would like introduce it. So they sort of threw the prequel timeline out the window, because then you were like going on the planet Crate and you were going through Jakku. They just added Ahsoka. So like the final scene is like the space whales. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. So you're like flying among the space whales, and there's like it was the Lego set, the one with the Shin Hati, the Starfighter.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like flying around with the Ahsoka's T6 shuttle, and they're like doing spins and space whales.
It sounds fancy.
Yeah.
You are really selling this ride to me, Brian. I remember when I went back in my teenage years, like it had a few different ones, but the fact that they add new ones like pretty much every film or when new series come out, that's very cool. So I'm gonna have to come back.
Well, I like that y'all modded this Endor set, but took it away from Endor, which is kind of why I would mock it. Like, part of me was like, oh, I'd mod it, make these trees bigger, because obviously, they couldn't make them full size for Endor, but to me they look a little truncated, where I would like them to be larger. But then as I was kind of quibbling between them, I was like, you know what? I don't really need this scene, so this would be a mock for me. I love Lego plant parts to start with, so getting some of those ferns, like these greens, there's some of the nice little tri-blade leaves and some of the large leaf parts too. So I know I would use pretty much all these greens in my collection, and hey, if I mock it, that means I have a tile that says, quick, jam the comlink, center switch! So I will have this in my collection to use for all time. Alright, well, this was a fun conversation, and I'm kind of with you, Alex. Like, I don't own any of these 3 sets, but talking through it has made me really kind of want them. So now I'm debating, like, well, not all of them, but definitely the trash compactor, even Dagobah. I'm starting to think too about some of the ones that we have currently on the market, like the Pod Race. I don't know, y'all. We talked about downsizing this episode, but I feel like every time we talk about another set, it's taking me in the opposite direction instead.
What future dioramas do we think we want to see in this theme?
Ooh, great question. Well, we've kind of harvested quite a bit of the original trilogy, but I don't feel like we've really gotten too much from the prequels or even from the sequels. I think this is very unlikely, but when The Phantom Menace came out in 99, like, I still have such nostalgia for that, and especially remembering the opening scenes. So I would love the little scene where Qui-Gon is trying to push his lightsaber in through the door to get at Newt Gunray and company. So like one of those gray doors, but like there's these nice red and trans orange in the middle of it. I don't know if we could get droidicas as well in that whole scene, but kind of a Trade Federation hallway with prequel Qui-Gon, and that if his blade is in there, then we get a lot more colors than just like the traditional gray of a Star Wars set.
I guess the question is, do you prefer minifig dioramas or the microscale dioramas?
I prefer minifigure ones.
I mean, some of the micro scale ones are beautiful. Like I have that trench run. I know they did some of the gift with purchases of like indoor and such. But how can you ever say no to a Star Wars minifigure?
And I think, Clay, similarly to you, I would actually go with episode 1 and I would recreate the Darth Maul
Ooh.
Jewel, or the Jewel of the Fates. Yeah. Would you go with the tan walls, or would you go in the shield generator or power generator area? I feel like the power generator area might be a bit hard to recreate in such like a confined space, whereas the tan walls might be a bit easier.
Yeah, I would do the hanger, and then the quote can just be like chorus intensifies.
That would be a better quote than the indoor one.
Definitely. Yeah, because they would probably struggle to pick a quote for that.
They don't say a word when the door opens and Darth Maul is there, right? They just like immediately pull out their lightsaber. No, they think they tell Amidala to run or something. I feel like they tell Anakin and Amidala to get out of there. I don't know. Every time we bring up Star Wars opinions, I'm so afraid. You haven't mentioned one yet, Brian?
Oh, let's see. I mean, yeah, so has the only prequel diorama that we've gotten is the pod racing, right?
It's the only one off the top of my head I recall, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much. I always say there's so much source material to pull from. So, of course, some sequel ones would be cool to see. And of course, all of the Disney Plus shows. And I always think that's so interesting how some Disney Plus shows get like a ton of sets and then some get like none. So, like Andor had one, but then Kenobi had, what was it like? Did Kenobi also only have one? But then Mandalorian, of course, had like a million. And then Ahsoka had a good handful.
Yeah, and we're even getting more Ahsoka ones coming up too.
I think Kenobi did have two. It had the Inquisitor's shuttle and then the Darth Vader and Obi-Wan battle, which for me, two very extreme sets. Like one really good set with the shuttle, and then the other one was like interesting.
Yeah.
Also for Duel of the Fates, according to the script, Qui-Gon says, "We'll handle this," which actually would be a pretty good quote tile if it's in the moment in the hangar. Like that would actually kind of work.
I was thinking the best quote, and I was trying to remember where this was from, but it's when Obi-Wan says, "Sith Lords are our speciality." I think that's a cool quote, and I think that's from episode 3 when they're dueling Count Dooku on the invisible hand.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, let's leave that for another time, Clay. I don't want to have to battle with you.
Now I just want to build a set around the quote. Now this is pod racing!
Is that the quote on the pod race? Does the pod racing one have a quote?
Well, he says that when it's at the end of the movie when he's flying the Naboo starfighter. So if it is on the diorama, then we need to fight with Lego. Let's quickly recap our choices so that the audience can tell us who had the best one. So for my list, I chose to make the Death Star trash compactor, to mod the Dagobah Jedi training, and to mock the indoor speeder chase. What was your list, Brian?
Mine was to make the Death Star trash compactor, to mod the Endor speeder chase, and to mock the Dagobah Jedi training.
And Alice.
So mine were to make the Dagobah Jedi training, to mod the Endor speeder chase, and to mock the Death Star trash compactor.
Fantastic. Thanks for an awesome round of this. It was super fun to talk through the dioramas. So we want to hear in the comments who had the best list, and then also what about you? Which sets are you wanting to mock? Have you modded any of these? And then of course, what are some of your favorite Star Wars dioramas? All right, well, that is all we have for today's episode of the Tips and Bricks podcast. Thank both of you so much for being here with us today and having these fun conversations. Brian, do you have any final thoughts or projects that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, so every other year, Disney hosts D23 Expo, which is basically where they announce all of their new movies and theme parks and TV shows. And it's basically just a giant convention to promote the Disney brand. So I'm really excited because that's usually when they announce all of the new attractions and entertainment that are coming to the Disney parks around the world. So this year, sort of going off of the Spider-Man animatronic that I had talked about, and there was another thing that I had built pretty much shortly after it debuted. I'm basically going to be watching the live stream, and I'm going to try and like build a mock based off of the concept art as quickly as possible. Just because in all the excitement, I would love for my build to randomly show up on people's feeds of like, oh, that was like that new Avengers e-ticket that they're working on. I imagine there's going to be a lot of information about that. It's basically this attraction where you're going through the multiverse and you're fighting like King Thanos. It's completely ridiculous. The concept art already looks completely unhinged, where it's just like every character fighting like Thanos. Sorry, King Thanos. He's basically Thanos with like a crown and like a white beard. So I'll be watching that and trying to pump out some mocks based off of concept art. But you can follow me there on, and this is 2 underscores. So underscore TM31, and then 2 more underscores after that.
Awesome. Thanks for letting us know where we can find you. And of course, we'll see you behind the scenes on Tips and Bricks. Even maybe your minifigure or brick head will make an appearance on that tips post about downsizing. So if y'all would like to hear more from Brian, be sure to follow him on his social media, and you'll see plenty of him on Tips and Bricks as well. Well, we hope everyone listening returns for our next episode. Be sure to share with a friend too. Until then, continue the conversation with us at Tips and Bricks on Instagram and YouTube, and join us on Patreon. You can find all those links in the podcast description.
So if you enjoyed today's episode, we would love for you to rate and review us on your favourite podcast app. Leaving us a review helps listeners like you find us. So until next time, I'm Alex with Clay and Brian signing off. Happy building, everyone.